Alright, all you glorious gamers out there, welcome to the PlayerStoo Podcast, the video game podcast for gamers like you, by gamers like you. You can find PlayerStoo on all the social media, that's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, the lot. You can also find our written content over at PlayerStoo.com, that's PlayerStoo.com. And if you could take 5 seconds to give us 5 stars over on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, that really helps us out. There's a huge amount for the exposure of the show. And while you're over there, if you could give us a little review as well, that just helps us out even more. And you can review on Spotify, so why not be a double legend and review us on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify, and you would be a double legend to us, Liz.
Double legend.
Double legend. You're not supposed to speak before I introduce you. This is how it goes. Anyway, and on with the show, with me as always, who would have guessed it, it's Liz Camley.
I've spoiled the surprise.
How's it going, Liz?
It's going very well, Mark. It's nice to have you at arm's length once again. Yeah,
I'm recording from my new house for the first time, on my new laptop for the first time, so super hope the sound's okay, but I'm glad I'm here, man. It's not that I didn't enjoy coming over to yours to record, obviously that was a very pleasant experience, however, I'm very glad that I didn't have to move anywhere.
Yeah,
with a lot of recording stuff. Anyway, Liz, what have you been playing this week?
This week, Mark, and a wee bit of last week, actually, I've made a start on Death's Door at long last. I've been wanting to get to this.
This is a fantastic choice.
I've been wanting to get to this since it was kind of announced, and suddenly it was the hot thing last summer, and then you played it and loved it, and I remember you saying specifically that you thought I would really enjoy it, and you were dead right so far.
There we go. That was a wee bit suspenseful there for a slight second, but good.
So this is a 3D isometric action sort of adventure game, slight puzzle elements. It's got so much of Zelda's DNA in it, definitely. Yeah, Link's Awakening comes to mind partly because of the art style of the Link's Awakening remaster. It's got that classic Zelda, explore, unlock new abilities, go back, open new areas, all that good stuff, with a really nice art style and a really interesting but pretty straightforward story so far, at least. I would say I'm about halfway through. I've really enjoyed everything that it's done so far. It's not really put a foot wrong, to be honest. It's got really amazing level design, I think really enjoyable worlds to go through. It does have this quite interesting story that's building in different ways. The combat, I think, is good. I wish it was very slightly tighter, but I'm not even really registering that as like a criticism. There's just times where I feel like I take a hit when I probably wouldn't ordinarily if the combat was slightly tighter. But yeah, this is a game where you go around, you basically clear sort of arenas essentially of enemies, little zones where enemies are, and then you move on and you solve a puzzle, and that just kind of repeats on and on as you explore and you find out what's going on, and you save souls and all that stuff. I'm really enjoying it. I don't have tons to say at this point. I would hope to be finished it by next week, because I think I am, as I say, about halfway through, but so far so good, really. It's tight, it's solid, it's good fun to play, it's really enjoyable. It's got that really enjoyable game feel, when you're in it. The character movement's really
That's
good.
such a classic game feel, man.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. It was
you take your kind of souls currency and you invest it. The first couple of things I bought were better speed, because I just really like that zipping around that you can do. You've got a really good dash attack. It's a game a bit like Hyper Light Drifter, where you have to attack in order to replenish your bow and arrow or your magic spells kind of thing. It really well balances that like attack versus defense, that safety, because you can only take 4 hits at the start of the game before you die, and if you die you kind of go right back to the start of the level essentially, although you will have unlocked shortcuts and all that. There's so much to it, but it's really enjoyable. I would definitely be recommending this to anyone to give a bash, particularly if you like that style of game. I got it quite cheap on PS5. I think it was on a sale for about 11 quid, which so far is an absolute steal. I would happily have paid double that.
To be honest, man, I remember buying this game on Xbox, actually, because if you remember, it actually launched as a Xbox exclusive. I was shocked at how cheap it was. I think it was like 16 quid, maybe 18 quid. And I was like, I would have paid £25, £30 for this game. No questions asked.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't know if there's much of an end game or whatever, but that's not super important to me.
There is.
There is. Okay, cool. Like, I was going to say maybe if there isn't that, then that would justify a bit of a lower price. But yeah, for me, for the money that I've paid for this so far, I'm more than happy with it. It's the first game for a wee while where I've been sat while I'm doing other things thinking, I'm quite looking forward to getting back to Death's Door later tonight, or I'll just cram a wee half an hour play session in here because I can progress this slightly further. So yeah, if you're looking for something that's fun and enjoyable to play but also quite challenging in places and gets that action puzzle platform thing going on, I think this is where you want to be looking for it.
Yeah, man, it's absolutely great. As you said, it is quite challenging, definitely. It's not fucking about with those 4 lives, I've got to say.
No.
But really good, really, really great game. Challenging in places, sure, but never insurmountable, never really feels that way, certainly, or it didn't for me.
No.
Fantastic game, would recommend it to anyone, frankly.
And what about yourself, Mark? What have you been playing?
Well, Lewis, I have been playing quite a lot. Oh, we never even mentioned, we missed last week. Apologies for that, ladies and gentlemen. That was entirely my fault, as usual. But in those 2 weeks, Lewis, I have finished Psychonauts, which I believe I mentioned I was playing 2 weeks ago. It is a fantastic game. I thoroughly enjoyed my time with it. I thoroughly enjoyed my time with the madness that is Tim Schafer's mind. They basically just came up with a premise for a game that just allowed the creators to go absolutely wild, which was fantastic until the last level. And for whatever reason, in the last level, Lewis, they decided that they wanted this game to be a precision 3D platformer. And never in my life have I felt so frustrated. Honestly, it was one of the worst gaming experiences in my entire life, this last level of this otherwise fantastic game. And to be clear, while the rest of the game is ostensibly also a 3D platformer, it is much more a sort of quirky puzzle-based game, really, with sort of combat elements thrown in there. The combat's fairly lackluster, it's not really the thing, but most boss battles even really are more about the puzzle aspect of it. It's like you need to do a certain set of things to beat the boss, you know what I mean? It's not just like an out-and-out fight. Until it got to this last level, man. And the mechanics of the game, the animations, the control that you have over the character, none of it lended itself to being a precision platformer. And I thought that they'd understood this by the entirety of the rest of the game being nothing like that. And then just to dump it all on you at the end, oh my God, it was awful. It was absolutely awful. However, I'm choosing not to let that colour my experience of the game because it otherwise was fantastic and I did enjoy my time with it. So now we've moved on to Psychonauts 2 List, which I have to say is also pretty mad and creative and weird and is once again just Tim Schafer going wild, it seems, but everything has just been moved forward and built for the modern day, including all those things that I mentioned, including the controls, which just have a fantastic layout compared to the old game. I would say far from perfect, but just compared to that old style of button layout, my God, it's a breath of fresh air, frankly. But this game does focus much more on the platforming. But because this game is designed for the 21st century and it has better controls and better mechanics and better animations, it's great. And I'm really, really enjoying that aspect of it. It's just that last game and that last level, like, it was very hard for you to do what the game was asking you to do with the tools that it was giving you. You know what I mean? It was so frustrating. And the difficulty spike on that last level was through the fucking roof. The rest of the game was really straightforward. But Lewis, I'm going to skip over that as well, believe it or not, to talk about what I actually want to talk about, which is Retro Bowl. Oh my God, Lewis.
Okay.
Oh my God.
Tell me more.
So for those of you that don't know, Retro Bowl is a mobile game. It has recently been ported to Switch as well. It's an American football mobile game. And honestly, Lewis, I think it is one of the most near perfect games I've ever played for what it is. It is so fucking good. It looks exactly like old Tecmo Bowl, basically, which you can play on the NES, which Lewis has found out because I've made him play me at it a few times. Again, for everyone that doesn't know, we are recording this 2 days after the Super Bowl. I am quite a big American football fan, I would say, and Lewis basically thinks it's 11 men on the field running into another 11 men on the field, and maybe once or twice a man will attempt to pass.
I couldn't even have told you that there was 11 on each team, so there you go.
Honestly, Lewis, this game cost me £1, and the Switch version I think is £4. It is absolutely fantastic. It is such a throwaway little game in a lot of ways, but is incredibly addictive. Like, I think I've played, like, in-game 7 seasons or something like that in a week. And to be clear, like, the NFL seasons aren't very long for those British people listening to this. It's, well, 18 games now, actually, plus playoffs, depending on how far you get, sort of thing. So a season's only 18 games, and the games are quite quick because you only play offense, you don't play the defense, which sort of means it's always, like, actiony for you, but also means that the games are sort of over quite quick. It is one of the best mobile games I've ever played in my life, Lewis. It is superb. I love it so much.
Fantastic, yeah. I mean, it's great to have the resurrection almost of a Tecmo Bowl-esque thing. I guess, just to be clear to anyone listening, so this is not a sort of Madden-style sim. This is a...
Oh, God, no. God, no. And thank God it's not. Thank God it's not, Liz. Put it this way, I would rather play this 9 times out of 10. In fact, I take back that. 10 times out of 10 than Madden. 10 times out of 10, I'd rather play this than Madden. It is so good. I love love it, and it's such a simple little game. The controls are so easy. It's wonderful. It's one of the best mobile games I've ever played. I absolutely love it. I had to pull myself away from playing Tecmo Bowl to go and play Psychonauts. That's how much I loved it.
Well, there you go.
Oh, honestly, if anyone has any interest in American football, maybe it was because after the Super Bowl or whatever, again, it's £1, and I think there's actually a free version on mobile as well, which is just ludicrous. Just pay the £1 and get the premium version. Fantastic. I'd really highly recommend it to everyone. I love it.
Very good. Well, yeah, I hope we'll hear a bit more about it, and I'll need to get a shot. I'll need to see it at some point.
Well, it's £1. Again, it's £1.
I mean,
even if you don't like it, it's £1.
It's not about it being £1. I just know I'll never play it, but I'd like to see it at yours. We'll get a Switch game on the go at some point, and I'll put on some good offense. But yeah, great stuff. Good to see that Tecmo Bowl lives.
Tecmo Bowl lives, man, and it's called Retro Bowl. All right, Lewis, I think it's time for the news. All right, Lewis, news item number 1. Microsoft have now confirmed in very unambiguous terms that Call of Duty will remain on PlayStation beyond whatever existing deals are in place. And they have also said that they are looking to bring Call of Duty to Nintendo Switch as well, which is a very interesting move. Microsoft have made this statement on their blog.
First, some commentators have asked whether we will continue to make popular content like Activision's Call of Duty available on competing platforms like Sony's PlayStation. The obvious concern is that Microsoft could make this title available exclusively on the Xbox console, undermining opportunities for Sony PlayStation users. To be clear, Microsoft will continue to make Call of Duty and other popular Activision Blizzard titles available on PlayStation through the term of any existing agreement with Activision. And we've committed to Sony that we will also make them available on PlayStation beyond the existing agreement and into the future, so that Sony fans can continue to enjoy the games they love. We are also interested in taking similar steps to support Nintendo's successful platform. We believe this is the right thing for the industry, for gamers, and for our business.
So, obviously, they haven't committed to making all Activision Blizzard games available multi-platform. And while I think the words around this could still imply that they are just talking about Warzone, if I'm totally honest, I do have to say, I think that this has given me much more hope that maybe the next mainline Call of Duty game after the PlayStation deal that's already in place expires might actually also come to PlayStation as well. We have both been pretty vocal about the fact that we thought that the next mainline Call of Duty game after the PlayStation deal runs out would be an Xbox exclusive. So this statement, I think, really does give a lot of people a lot of hope. Again, as I said, I think that the way that things are worded, Lewis, popular content is rubbing me the wrong way, I'm not going to lie to you. Makes me think that they could be talking about Warzone 2 coming to PlayStation and Switch and them committing to supporting that on multiple platforms for a long, long time. But I want to know your thoughts. What do you think here?
Yeah, so sort of mixed thoughts. The usual, when I first saw this, I think I sent it to you actually when I first saw it and thought, well, this is it, right? This is the smoking gun. We know what the truth is. And then I kind of reread it a few times.
Yeah, a lot of careful wording by Microsoft there.
Yeah. Essentially where I'm at, like, I think an ungenerous reading of this, which may be the accurate reading, is that what they say in reality, particularly in that second paragraph, is that they'll continue to make Call of Duty and other Activision games available through the term of their existing agreement and beyond that. That doesn't mean new games, because new games do not have existing agreements in place. And so I think there's enough of a skew there to say that future Call of Duty games in particular may not be released, but it's kind of open enough that they can go in either direction. I still am firmly in the camp that Warzone is definitely going to be on. Well, I think that's essentially what they mean when they talk about Nintendo here. I think there was more confirmation today that Call of Duty on Nintendo seems to be part of their ambitions. So I think that's Warzone. Again, I think it's an ungenerous and maybe cynical reading to say that.
I was going to say, I'm trying not to come across super cynical on this, right, but there's definitely a reading of this that makes it sound a lot worse than it might actually be. Like, I don't know if Microsoft are just choosing their words very, very carefully, but I promise that we're not just trying to be cynical PlayStation boys. I swear to you.
I mean, I'm just generally cynical, and I'm cynical about the behaviour of big businesses. So that's kind of why
we can fucking agree there. Jesus,
that's why I'm kind of looking at this with a fine-tooth comb. The one thing that does give me a bit of that sense of hope, and again, it's hope for other people. I don't care if I never play a Call of Duty again. It doesn't matter to me. So this is about, the overall principles of these things, I suppose. The thing that gives me a bit of hope is that I don't think it will be a great look for Xbox and Microsoft to have put out a statement like this that a lot of normal people are going to read as, okay, we're fine. Call of Duty is going to come to my PlayStation 5. It's okay, I don't have to do anything. If they then down the line say, oh, well, actually, if you read it really closely, we meant something else entirely. And I think that Xbox is concerned enough with its image to not do that. So that's where I stand on it just now. I don't think we're out of the woods on this one yet, but it's a big, bold statement, and we know some things from it now, at least.
It is a big, bold statement. It definitely is a big, bold statement. And again, I am sort of glad, assuming that it does mean that mainline Call of Duty games will still be coming to PlayStation, that Xbox have come out and upwardly said, no, we are planning to still put these on our competitors' platforms, because we know that there's communities there. We know that these people want to play those games on those platforms and have done for a long, long time. I also think that, remember the argument, Lewis, when Microsoft bought Bethesda for what we thought was a big 7.5 billion back in the day? There was a lot of chat then that, Microsoft will have to release all these games on PlayStation to make that 7.5 billion worth it. Now, obviously, it's not transpired that way, and I never really thought that it would ever do in the Bethesda deal. I was always very staunchly, these games are going to be Xbox exclusives, and that is exactly how it turned out. However, I do think that when we're talking about 70 billion, literally nearly 10 times more, that argument holds a bit more weight. I mean, the reason why Activision Blizzard is a company worth purchasing for £70 billion is because they release so much content across many, many platforms. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know, maybe there's something there as well that Xbox feel to justify this $70 billion spend. They have to keep producing things for other platforms, at least for the time being. Because, again, taking this quite cynically, Microsoft don't need to hold to this. They definitely don't need to hold to this indefinitely.
No,
so
absolutely not. Yeah.
It could always change, and I think that is always going to be a danger if you are a big Call of Duty player and you own a PlayStation console now and going forward. But nonetheless, I'm glad that they've come out with a statement. I think for the time being, we'll give them the benefit of a generous reading of these words. And yeah, Call of Duty fans, hopefully you won't have to worry about not being able to play your favourite game on your favourite console, at least for a little while. Alright, Lewis, news item number 2. Nintendo have had a Direct. We were told that this Direct would focus on games coming out on the first half of the year. So that means no Breath of the Wild, and everyone sort of should have known that going in, but judging by the reaction of the internet, a lot of people didn't.
Oh, people never know that, Mark. People never know that.
They never know it. However, just to give a quick recap, they started things off by announcing Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes, which is a Fire Emblem Musou game, which is quite interesting. It's quite an interesting decision to set that game in the Three Houses universe, because I actually think that works quite well. That'll be coming out on Switch on the 24th of June. Next up was Advanced Wars 1 and 2. This is the remakes of the original Advanced Wars. This will be coming out on the 8th of April. Looks quite quirky and interesting. A lot of people seem to be going mad for it. Personally, I'm not seeing a lot in it, list, but I'm glad it's there for the people that want it. Then we got the announcement that No Man's Sky was coming to Switch. It's amazing the legs that this game has got, considering the start that I had, but it is coming to the Switch in the summer. Next up was a big announcement, which I thought looked really, really awesome, which was Mario Strikers Battle League, which is basically Nintendo's football game, which is fucking awesome. It's 5 sides, right? It's 5 sides game, basically. I thought that this looked really cool. I sort of was aware of the Mario Striker series. I've never played any game in the Mario Striker series, but I actually thought this one looked pretty cool.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It looks like good fun. I mean, if you've paid any attention to the other kind of Mario sports games of late, like the tennis game or Mario Golf earlier this year, it's just the same vibe. You know, it's put Mario characters into a sports setting and add blue shells into the mix. You know,
we all love the blue shells until we're hit by one, don't we? After that list was Splatoon 3. This was just an additional trailer showing a sort of waves-based mode, it seemed, called Salmon Run. That will be coming out for Nintendo Switch at some point this year. Sort of surprised that we didn't get a release date for that, I have to say. Next up was the announcement of Front Mission First Remake, which is due out in the summer, and the fact that there will be a sequel coming out at some point in the future as well. I have to admit, this is not a game I ever knew existed, Lewis, but now it's got a remake. So if you're a fan, thumbs up to you. After that was Disney's Speedstorm. This is a free-to-play cross-platform Disney Pixar racing game. Very much in the Mario Kart realm, I will say. And it's coming out this summer, and honestly, it looks absolutely garbage. Sticking with Disney, they have announced a Switch port of the Wii version of Star Wars The Force Unleashed, which is due out on the 20th of April, which also looks absolutely dreadful, Lewis. As far as I'm concerned, it looks real bad. After that was SD Gundam Battle Alliance, which is due out on Switch at some point this year as well. Again, it's a Gundam game. If you're a Gundam fan, go and check it out. The next one, which I actually thought was quite exciting, was a remake of Chrono Cross called the Radical Dreamer Edition, which is coming out on April the 7th. I have to admit, Chrono Cross and Chrono Trigger really is what I actually want to play. I've been on my radar of JRPGs for a long time, and maybe this will be the thing that eventually makes me do it, Liz. After this, and as you would expect, we got a Kirby the Forgotten Lands trailer, which is due out on March the 25th. We got to see the new mouthful mode, Lewis, which allows Kirby to inhale such items as a car and a vending machine, both of which were absolutely fucking hilarious. Any interest in this?
I think it looks nice. It looks good. I preferred the first trailer we saw for it because it just seemed so left field for Kirby games. You know, it looked kind of post-apocalyptic at that point. This to me looks a lot like Mario Odyssey, but with Kirby in it instead. And that is both kind of exciting and also makes me think I just would probably rather a Mario game. But I think, you know, people are going to enjoy this. I'm pretty confident that this is going to turn out pretty well from everything we've seen so far. Yeah,
me too. And I mean, I basically agree with you. I think Mario Odyssey, but it's Kirby is sort of the vibe they're going for, and I think they're sort of nailing that, so fair play to them. After that was MLB The Show 22, which is coming to Nintendo Switch for the first time. Interestingly, this is developed by PlayStation, this game, and is also coming to Games Pass Day 1 for the second year in a row. Such a bizarre turnaround for that game, it really is. After that, Lewis, one of the big surprises for me was Klonoa 1 and 2 remake, both coming to Switch on July the 8th. Klonoa was one of these games, Lewis, that me and you played on demo discs from the PlayStation magazine years and years ago, and I don't think I ever actually played the full version of the game, but I remember liking it on the demos.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think it was back in like 97 we were playing that demo.
Jesus Christ,
I know, God, that's where we're at now, Mike. But yeah, it's a side-scrolling platformer. I remember it having some quite quirky mechanics around like inflating your enemies and throwing them at each other and stuff like that, and I always have an image of the music being really nice in it. I think a lot of people are quite excited about this who would have been considerably older than us in 1997 and were quite into it, so it's a bit of fan service that I think people have been hoping for a while, so that's good to see.
Yeah, definitely, man, definitely. Another surprise, Lewis, was Portal Companion Collection, which is Portal 1 and 2 on Switch. Now, the Portal series, Lewis, you absolutely love them. I don't think this is any secret whatsoever. This guy over here never played them like an idiot.
Played them.
Therefore, I think that this is the kick up the arse. I need to actually go and do it, Lewis. I think that this will be a swift purchase when it eventually comes out.
Good stuff. I mean, it's an absolutely iconic series, and the Portal 2 in particular is so good. It's got a co-op mode. We have to get into it, man. We have to.
Oh, man, 100%. That sounds awesome. After that list was Alive, which is a remake of a game that was previously only available in Japan, which is a JRPG, which I had heard of before, but basically no one else has. It's coming out on July the 22nd. I'm quite excited about it. Don't worry if you're not, nobody else is. After that list was Nintendo Switch Sports, which is obviously carrying over from Wii Sports, which was hugely successful on the Wii. Not entirely sure how successful this is going to be on the Switch, but it is coming out on the 29th of April. It will include volleyball, badminton, bowling, soccer, Kambara, and tennis. I'm not sure how successful this is going to be on Switch, as I said, but a revival of a very, very popular Nintendo franchise, I will say. Next up was Taiko no Tatsujin Rhythm Festival, which, Lewis, is one of the most fever-dreamish rhythm games I think I've ever seen. If you're into your rhythm games, maybe go and check that out, but it looked wild. After that, we got the announcement that Triangle Strategy was having a new demo launch the day of the Direct, which is something I definitely would have played hadn't I had to finish Psychonauts, and subsequently when Horizon Forbidden West comes out, and then after that when Elden Ring comes out, and it's definitely going to get pushed down the road, but I'm going to play it at some point. I definitely am.
The game will be out by then.
Oh, I definitely will. Definitely will be out by the time I get around to playing it. After that, we got to see a little bit more of Cuphead The Delicious Last Course, which is the Cuphead DLC, which is coming to Switch on June the 30th. Then we got told about a free update to Metroid Dread, which adds a one-hit difficulty dread mode, which absolutely fuck that if you played that game, and a new rookie difficulty mode, which basically makes things a lot easier, which is good because I think a lot of people were finding the game quite hard. Then we got the announcement that Earthbound and Earthbound Beginnings will now be available via Nintendo Switch Online, which is very exciting because as a JRPG fan, Earthbound is something that has been on my radar for a long, long time, Liz, and that is quite exciting that it's going to be there for me. Will I ever get around to play it? I'm going to tell myself yes for now, but I'm glad that it's there. We'll say that. After that list was perhaps the biggest announcement of the Direct. It was DLC for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Not Mario Kart 9, DLC for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. The DLC will include 38 new tracks, which is a colossal amount of additional tracks, over 6 waves. So basically you get 8 courses per wave, and it will be ending in 2023, which is a long roadmap for Mario DLC, I've got to say. Obviously, I think the reason that they're doing this rather than announcing Mario Kart 9 is because of the install base of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which is absolutely fucking colossal at this point. I think it is by far and away the most owned Switch game. I'm sure that that's correct.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. It definitely is.
It's madness. So that's why we've not got Mario Kart 9. We've got Mario Kart 8 DLC. But it is a hell of a lot of DLC. We'll just come back to that in a second. Just want to say that they finished out the show by announcing Xenoblade Chronicles 3, which is another JRPG, which isn't so much my vibe of JRPG, I've got to say, so it wasn't doing much for me. Liz, I know it wasn't doing very much for you either, let's be honest here.
No.
But this Mario Kart stuff, I thought that was really interesting, very interesting direction, because the rumours around had been that we could be getting a Mario Kart 9 announcement, but it was just all this DLC, so obviously the lines have got crossed somewhere in the rumour mill, you know?
It seems that way, yeah. I mean, if you catch rumours of 48 new tracks, you're going to assume that that's a new
absolutely.
game, but it's not. It's old content in reality, actually. It's a lot of them are remasters.
Yeah, a lot of them are
remasters,
correct.
From previous games. So, yeah, divisive, this one. I think it's quite good. Like, if they're not ready to put out Mario Kart 9, this breathes some fresh life into this. And also, we saw with the Smash DLC packs that Nintendo fans want this. They want to add new content. I mean, if they could add new drivers to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe as well going forward, you know, you could extend the lifetime of that for years still. But yeah, I think there's a bit of disgruntlement around having to pay for DLC again, given that this is a game that you may have already bought on the Wii U and then bought again on the Switch, and now as the deluxe version, and now you're having to pay another $25. But it is also rolled in with that expansion pack for the Nintendo Switch Online. So if you jumped on the Nintendo 64 expansion and the Sega games that you can pick up now, then you get this essentially rolled in. So pros and cons, I think overall it's kind of okay. I think it's not such a bad offer, really.
Yeah, me too. I mean, don't get me wrong, I think that the people who bought the game on Wii U, then bought it on Switch, then bought the DLC, like, I can understand why those people are feeling slightly aggrieved, don't get me wrong, but I actually think I'm sort of maybe happier with this than Mario Kart 9 in a lot of ways. I don't think that we're going to see Mario Kart 9 until a new Switch console, basically. I think that's when we'll see it. Alright, let's news item number 3. It seems as though PlayStation have censored, and we'll come back to the word censored in a minute, an upcoming first-person horror game called Martha is Dead. The publisher of the game, Wired Productions, and developer LKA have made this statement on Twitter.
Martha is Dead is a narrative adventure recommended for adult audiences only, with play consisting of potentially discomforting scenes and themes that may distress some players. Both Wired Productions and LKA have always been open and honest about Martha is Dead content, with the sensitive depictions in play consistently communicated to the media since the game was announced in 2019. This content is also flagged clearly and repeatedly within the game itself before play begins. It is with regret that we've had to modify the experience on the PS5 and PS4 versions, with some elements no longer playable. After over 4 years of passion and hard work, developer LKA now requires extra time to make these unplanned changes. Martha is Dead, as a result, will still launch digitally on both PS5 and PS4 on Thursday, February 24th, 2022. But the physical retail release will be delayed to a yet-to-be-disclosed date, although we anticipate this to only be a small number of weeks. Our physical edition will still contain the bonus content of a double-sided poster, digital tarot cards, and Martha's Dead digital EP. We will update players with the date we ship this edition as soon as we have the information. The PC and Xbox versions of Martha's Dead are both unaffected by these developments and will launch with the full unedited gameplay as planned. We look forward to players experiencing the work of LKA on Thursday, February 24th, 2022.
Okay, so a little peek behind the curtain here, listeners. I'm not sure that we've ever had as heated an argument about any news topic on which we seem to be on quite different sides of the argument. I'm not going to lie, we're comfortably 30 minutes late recording this because of said argument. So I'm going to open the floor here to Lewis, and he can tell you why this isn't censorship and isn't a big deal, and I will tell you why he's wrong.
Well, I mean, that's loading the dice against
I'm not
me.
loading. No. But like, there are two sides to this argument. I don't think I gave you a fair shout in our pre-podcast warm-up, so the floor is yours, sir.
I think basically it's a complex issue is what I think this is, and essentially what my argument boils down to is that I don't really think that this matters to any great extent, and I'm not quite certain why people are getting very worked up about it, particularly, and this is the key part, particularly because we don't actually know absolutely anything about it at the moment. We don't know what's been edited. We don't know how it's been edited. Actually, rereading that statement now, I realise that they are saying that certain parts won't be playable any longer, not that they have actually been removed. So it might well be that something that in the Xbox version you physically control the sticks on is actually just shown as a cutscene in this time, which might well dilute the argument about removing it in the first place. But to me, what censorship is about government control over public speech, generally around politically sensitive issues, right? And there's obviously more to it than all of that. But all creative art that comes out like this goes through processes of checks and balances against standards, right? And we have ESRB ratings, we have all these different ratings. Those are not actually legally enforceable, ESRB ratings. And so platform holders also have a responsibility to not put out content that they think is damaging to the people that might consume it. And I think this all boils down basically to the fact that none of the platform holders will publish AO rated games, which is adult only. They have all said that. Xbox, Nintendo and PlayStation have basically all said that in the past. So to get your game published, it essentially has to be mature. Now, if the ESRB have said that this game is mature and not adult only, that's fair enough. But I think that it is within Sony's remit as a platform and as a business holder to disagree with that if they feel it. Again, we don't know what's been cut. There's big rumours that it is this scene that you can see on Twitter if you go looking for it, which involves the player cutting, in first person, cutting the face off a dead woman and apparently then wearing it. That is mentioned in the ESRB's rating of the game, along with several other. I think there's removing a baby from the womb, violently. There's various other things like that I suspect what this is all about is that it comes down on the line of where the division between mature and adult only sits in relation to violence is prolonged and intense. And if those are deemed to be prolonged and intense scenes by PlayStation, even if not by the ESRB, I think that PlayStation is kind of within its rights. Whether or not we like that or not is another question, but they don't have to publish everything that goes on. And in reality, this game is still coming out on PlayStation. It is still available to play. It sounds like it's possible that it will just be not fully playable rather than cut, which I think is where a lot of the argument comes in. And ultimately, if you want to play the full unabridged version, you can play it elsewhere. So I can't really accept that as censorship. It's maybe a platform holder overstepping its usual bounds. My final point there, and I will let you kind of reply to all that, my final point is basically Sony don't do this very often. I know some people seem to make out, I've seen a lot of Twitter comments and stuff today of people going, Sony are at it again. I can't really think of many examples of this happening, and that tells me that there's something about this game that is more gratuitous than The Last of Us Part 2, that is more gratuitous than Mortal Kombat 11, that is more gratuitous than all of these types of games. And so before I take up the pitchfork and man the gamer barricades against Sony on this one, I just want some context. I just want the developers or Sony to come out and explain what's been cut and why, and then I'll make a decision about what I think is good or bad about it.
Okay, very good. I do think that this probably has crossed the line into censorship for me. I think that when you were speaking about the ESRB stuff, I think that is, well, not legally enforceable, and you're right about that. It is video games regulating themselves such that governments and things like that don't have to get involved. It is a set of guidelines with which we've all ostensibly signed up to. And while I think it is, technically speaking, probably within PlayStation's rights to change a rating or to decide that it's not going with the rating which the ESRB has ascribed to it, I think that they should be beholden to that more than they are, and I think that they should respect the ratings that the ESRB give out and respect their gamers to make that decision for themselves rather than remove that decision from them. I think that this is massively overstepping what they should be doing in situations like this. I basically don't. I mean, you would have to be very, very gratuitous for me to think that it was like beyond the pale and adult only, considering like some content and whatever that you get in like horror movies and things like that. And don't get me wrong, I know it's not quite the same when you're doing it in first person yourself and all that, right? That's a whole other different argument. And I don't want to get into the specifics of what is and is not censorship, because that's a whole fucking podcast by itself. But basically, what it comes down to is that I think that this is a real dick move by PlayStation that is really fucked probably quite a small publisher and quite a small developer, at least on their physical releases. And they have said in their statement, and it is only one side of the argument I suppose, but they have said in their statement that they communicated this stuff to the publishers, like
to the media
platform.
is what they said, which is also telling, I think.
Well, okay, fine, fair enough, but they weren't hiding it, I think, is the point that they're trying to make here. And PlayStation seem to have made this decision incredibly late in the day from their perspective, which is pretty poor in and of itself, even beyond the overreach, which I think that this obviously is. Yeah, I think that this is a dick move. I think that it's a complex issue, as you've said, but I do think that this is clear overreach here. I don't think that this is a decision that Sony should have taken away from consumers who can make a decision for themselves on whether or not they want to play this or want to see it. I think that they have undermined the authority of the ESRB as well by saying that we will not subscribe to what you say and we will just be doing our own thing where and when we want to, effectively, and I don't like that either. Yeah, this is complex, but as you rightly said, we don't actually know what's been cut here. We don't know the ins and outs of the situation. So I think that we'll leave it there and hopefully it becomes a bit clearer. And I think that one of us may have to change our stance on this at some point, depending on what the situation develops to be. We shall see.
Yeah. Well, the game's out next week, basically. So yeah, we'll have a better
we'll
picture
next
when
week. We'll have a huge argument on podcast next week. Yeah. Alright, Lewis, news item number 4. Ubisoft are continuing to be absolute fucking dicks. And no, it's not because of NFTs this week, although that is definitely a reason why they're still being dicks. No, it's that pesky sexual harassment and discrimination and misconduct case that just won't go away. And why won't it go away, Lewis? Because Ubisoft refused to do fucking anything to change their culture or anything that caused that in the first place. You may remember last year a group of Ubisoft employees who formed a group, A Better Ubisoft, had released an open letter to Ubisoft signed by over 1,000 Ubisoft employees, basically demanding fundamental changes, demanding that they address these issues. And 200 days later, which this is, or was yesterday I think actually, as we are recording this, none of these demands have been met and no substantial changes have taken place at all. They have also added to their tweet, which we will link to over in the show notes at PlayersToo.com, that there is a petition that anyone can sign in support of A Better Ubisoft, and you can voice your concerns around the behaviour of Ubisoft. I have already signed this. I use my real name, but you can sign it anonymously if you want. I highly recommend that everyone does, because I think that what A Better Ubisoft is asking for is actually pretty fucking straightforward. And really the response to all this sexual harassment stuff from Ubisoft has been pretty pathetic, really. It's all been a lot of lip service. They've said that they would change. It seems that they have not changed. It says that they would take like meaningful actions. It seems that they've not done that. I really think that everyone at Ubisoft should be thoroughly embarrassed about the lack of effort that they've put into this. And I do hope that A Better Ubisoft continue to do these like 100-day updates, basically, and that the media continues to pick up on the story, because it is important that Ubisoft are held accountable for this and meaningful change is forced into taking place even if they don't want to do it. But it sounds like, unfortunately, Lewis, we might be waiting a long time for that to actually happen.
I don't think I have too much to add to what you said there, Mark. Yeah, absolutely. This is hugely important. It's really important that the media generally keeps up with this and keeps reporting on it, and that the people involved keep telling their stories out to the rest of us so that change can happen and can be forced through if it needs to be. Let's hope at some point Ubisoft wake up and realise the damage that this is ultimately going to do to their brand and to their company if they don't start to take action. You know, eventually staff will leave in their droves, or people won't want to work with them in future. People will turn against their games, you know, as knowledge of these issues continues to grow. So yeah, let's all get that petition signed first and foremost and go from there and see what else we can do to support people at Ubisoft and all across the games industry who are suffering a lot of the time under pretty terrible management. Yeah, absolutely. Sign the petition. Links in the show notes, as always, at PlayersToo.com.
Alright, Lewis, finishing off as we always do with a couple of shout-outs. Shout-out number 1, Horizon Forbidden West reviews are in, and the game seems to be very good indeed. Currently sitting with an 89 on Metacritic. It has 100 reviews, of which 15 are 10 out of 10s, and over 70 of those reviews have scored the game over a 90, which really is reviewing astonishingly well as far as I'm concerned. Remember that might be foreshadowing for later, ladies and gentlemen. But by all accounts, the game is absolutely stunning. If you see any of the gameplay footage, you can absolutely see why. Very much seems that it has lived up to being a sequel to what I would say is one of the best PS4 era exclusives, and it's just built on that. You know what I mean? It is an iteration, but it's a meaningful iteration on the formula, you know. Thoughts on this, Lewis? I know that you have been sort of more tepid on Horizon generally. Does this make you any more or less likely to play it?
Neither more nor less likely, I don't think, really. I mean, it's getting great reviews, there's no doubt about it. It looks like a really fantastic game and another total success from Guerrilla, but it's just not... I find it really hard to put my finger on what it is about Horizon. I've never really warmed to it. I've never been excited by it. You know, I have a certain tolerance or excitement for big open world games to different extents, and like Ghost of Tsushima surprised me with how much I did enjoy that. I was a little worried that, you know, that over bloated chasing down markers thing, I had got beyond all that. And I don't know if I just associate Horizon with that or what it is, but I don't know, it just doesn't click with me in the way that most of Sony's other games do. So like, I definitely want to see it again. Like, I know you're going to play it. I'll happily come and sit next to you and watch loads of it getting played. Maybe at that point I would pick it up. But yeah, it's just, of all the first party slate from Sony, it's the one that probably does, forgetting Days Gone, probably the one that does the least for me.
Good to know you're a big Gran Turismo fan as well.
True. Actually, there's probably tons, isn't there? But
Alright, let's shout out number 2. Sifu has come out last week, but we were off last week, so we're doing it this week. Leave us alone. Currently sitting with an 80 on the PS5 and a 78 on PC. The game is pretty divisive, I would say, mainly due to its like forced grind, which, I mean, hello, it's a roguelike, but also it is very hard in a sort of bullshitty, sort of unfair, quite unjustified sort of way, it seems, which is the least good way to be a hard game, let's be honest. But interestingly, almost everyone seems to acknowledge this in some capacity, or to a greater or lesser extent in their reviews. But all of them say, oh, but the combat's great though, it's great fun, the combat. So I think your enjoyment of the game will largely rest on how much fun you are having with the combat versus how much you can put up with everything else. You were once upon a time interested in this, Lewis. Are you still interested in playing it?
I definitely am, yeah. I mean, I was slightly affected by that difficulty discourse. As with any game that comes with that discourse, it makes me think, will I actually have the time to get through this and really put the hours in? But everything else about it really appeals to me. And, you know, I have seen people say that maybe if combat in a game, melee combat in a game is kind of more your thing than gunplay, this might work for you. And I'm definitely in that space. So, yeah, I'm still keen to play it. It might not be like right on the immediate horizon for me, but it's something that I'm really keen. I would really love it if it was kind of game that PlayStation would give away on PS Plus at some point. It feels like that would be
I think
perfect.
It will be, to be honest.
Yeah, maybe just down the line a little, but if that came day and date, it would have been kind of the perfect PS Plus game for me to dive into.
Alright, let's shout out number 3. Dying Light 2 has also come out last week. It's currently sitting with a 77 on PS5, 77 on Series X, and a 79 on PC, which is pretty lukewarm if we're being honest with ourselves. It seems as though the game has not insignificant technical issues, which never helps, but also it seems as though, and by most accounts I would say, the writing is not good and the story is not great either. And I think that the ending in particular seems to have disappointed a lot of people. But also keep in mind that when this game was first announced, they were leaning very heavily into the narrative and into the setting. And remember that they were saying that depending on the choices that you would make in the game, like huge parts of the game might be inaccessible on any particular playthrough, or that the landscape might be totally different and things like that, which actually made me think, oh, that's a really bold call. That might actually be quite interesting, but I don't really think any of that has come to fruition, really, to be honest. But similarly to Sifu, while everybody basically acknowledges that this game is pretty flawed, it seems as though running around a city doing parkour and battering zombies in the head with baseball bats is like really fun. Who knew? And I think that this is represented in the Steam numbers, to be honest, because it's doing incredibly well. It peaked with over 275,000 concurrent players, which was more than Halo Infinite, and is the 24th highest peak ever, which is incredible. And as of this recording, has just under 85,000 players on Steam, making it the 8th most played game on Steam right now. And for some context, Halo has slightly under 9,000, which actually puts it even behind Forza Horizon 5 on 9,500. I'm not sure if that says more about Halo or more about Dying Light, but Dying Light is definitely doing pretty well. And I think that those Steam numbers really show that, you know?
Yeah, I would say so. It's that classic thing where review scores and people's enjoyment don't necessarily pair up. I mean, the thing that always interested me about the first game, and I always meant to play the first game, was the parkour and the traversal and how good that looked like it would feel. And it seems like they've nailed that again here, but all the stuff they tried to build on top of that hasn't really worked. So, yeah, it's a bit of a shame. From most reviews I've read, it seems like it's probably still worth a bash if you've got any interest in it. It's not a terrible game.
Sure,
it's just like buggy and lacking in different ways. But, you know, like you say, bashing skulls and jumping about rooftops can't really go too wrong, right?
Yeah. All right, shout out number 4, Lewis. And just to round off the games that have come out over the last week or so, Crossfire X has come out, and oh wow, it seems to be bad. I have literally not heard anything good about this game at all. It seems to fail on narrative and mechanics, level design, and enemy design. Like, it fails on all accounts. It only has 5 Metacritic reviews right now. It has 3 4s, 1 4.5, and IGN's review is pending, but I actually looked it up, and IGN gave it a 3, and it is very, very rare that someone like IGN would give a game that low a score, because usually games that are a 3 aren't being reviewed by IGN. Basically, it seems very terrible in almost all aspects, and I would highly recommend that if you're considering buying this, you do some research on it and see whether or not you actually think that that is a good decision. Which is so sad, because Remedy were involved in this, Lewis, and I love Remedy, but this seems very, very bad. And final shout out number 5, and just a few hours ago, CDPR have announced that the next gen versions of Cyberpunk 2077 launch today. Huzzah for anyone who's still interested in the game, which I suspect is not many people. But if you were holding off on playing the game until the next gen release and until the game is in a better state, now is probably your time, to be completely honest, because along with all the next gen upgrades, your 60 FPS, your 4K, your ray traced graphics, etc., they have also announced a new patch which apparently tweaks just about everything in the game, all the way from the upgrade tree to the NPC AI, which is a good thing, because there are many, many things within that game that need tweaked, Lewis, if I'm totally honest with you, especially that upgrade tree, which most of the time was a fucking waste of space, frankly. But I wouldn't really be surprised if this is basically as good as the game got. Like, I'm not sure how many other massive patches we're going to get for this game, so if you've been holding off playing it, now is probably the time. All right, ladies and gentlemen, and with that, I think it's time for a beer, and then we'll be back for Topic of the Week. And we are back for Topic of the Week. Topic of the Week this week is video game review scores, Lewis. The old enemy. Somehow we love them and hate them. This is basically all around the discourse around the Horizon Forbidden West review scores, which, despite reviewing basically fantastically well, has somehow still managed to be controversial. And it seems to focus a lot on the fact that the Metacritic review score is an 89 and doesn't start with a 9, like isn't a 90 something. Also, a lot is falling on this guy, Job Gilroy, at Stevivor, and Stevivor have been in the PlayStation fanboy hot seat before because they infamously gave Death Stranding a 3.5 out of 10. So obviously this immediately devolved into a fucking console wars thing, which was, it just ruins the discourse around basically everything. But in Stevivor's defense, they have given Spider-Man Miles Morales and the original Spider-Man 9.5 out of 10. They have given Ratchet and Clank a 9 out of 10, which is higher than I would give all 3 of those games. And they gave the original God of War an 8, which may be a wee bit low for God of War, but it's not like abysmal or anything like that, you know? And I just think that everything around review scores and Metacritic scores is just... It's weird, because as I was just saying to you before the podcast, like, and I know that we just spent a bit of time there just reading out a whole bunch of them, you know what I mean? Is that I think that they are a useful tool, But ultimately, when you burrow down into like any one review score, unless that's someone whose opinion you really respect and who aligns with your taste in video games, no one review on that aggregator actually really matters all that much. Or at least that's how I see it. Like, I see a review score and I'm thinking, okay, the consensus is this. Then I will go and read some reviews of people or publications that I respect the opinion of. And if they are saying a whole bunch of things that I think are good and that I would enjoy, then that lines up as something that I would want to buy. You know what I mean? That's sort of how I see review scores. What about you? Like, are your thoughts on this discourse? What are your thoughts on review scores generally? What do they mean to you? How do you use them? Are they just a steaming pile of shit? What is it, Lewis? What is it?
I think they're a bit of all of that, to be totally honest.
Yeah, this is the thing, is that I think that, again, as I was just saying to you, I think that review scores are at one time totally fucking useless and totally pointless, but at the same time also incredibly useful sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the old argument is that they're there because they're a good shorthand for the reader. The reader can quickly understand what a writer... It's the TLDR, right? You put that at the end of your thing and you can quickly surmise whatever about a game or about a film or whatever it happens to be. There's obviously now the sense that they're actually about website traffic and the intersection of technology and capitalism, which means that you have to put a number if you want your review to be seen by more people and therefore get money on your website and all that stuff. So I think that's poisoned the well a little bit when it comes to review scores. Not any individual review score, mind you. I'm not saying that any single review score is ever given based on the idea of driving traffic. People may disagree with that in certain cases. I know that's like a criticism that will have been levied at Job Gilroy for his 6.5 for Horizon. You know, okay, maybe there's bad actors and maybe that happens every so often, but generally speaking, what I think is a lot of sites feel like they have to number a review because that puts them on Metacritic and that means more clicks. And it also just means, you know,
Absolutely.
It means you get put on the Nibel tweet roundup that, you know, we share every time a game comes out and that millions of people share, you know. And in fact, kind of funny, I've just done this. They've basically introduced a review score, I think, so that they can be in that tweet and on those kinds of things. So it is a way to build platforms as well. So the whole nature of what they were back when we used to read like official PlayStation magazine, and a review score was really useful because you could just compare that to other games that were out this month and go, this is the best game, or it looks like the best game that's come out this month. The field is too big now. To me, I use review scores only insofar as they give a broad brush picture of reaction to a game. So for example, Dying Light that you mentioned earlier, the 77 that got on Metacritic tells you quite quickly that it hasn't quite lived up to some of the promise that we felt for it, right? That gives me a broad picture. It doesn't make my decision for me or whatever. Same with, you know, Sifu, which is only 3 points higher than that, but that feels like it's reviewed pretty well. But the reality is, right, that the discourse, the actual interesting stuff that people are talking about is not there in a number, and it can't ever be there in a number. And I think we now live in a media landscape where you can listen to people like us and listen to anyone working in the game space talk about their favourite games or the latest game that gets reviewed, and you can get 2-minute TikTok videos, or you can get hour-long podcasts, or you can get 20-minute video reviews, and it's kind of that I think you have to go for rather than the number now. If you're genuinely trying to find out stuff about a game, like if you're just trying to see like, is CoD worse than it was last year, you can probably just look at the numbers, right? But if you actually want to get to grips with some of the stuff like those difficulty discourses, or like how does this stack up against its predecessors or whatever, you have to go and do the work, because we live in a really media rich landscape now where a number just doesn't cut it.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. It shouldn't be the be-all and end-all of your decisions on what makes a good game, you know what I mean? Like, I have websites that I go to that I basically trust to present the information to me in a way that I can determine whether or not I'm going to like something. And even if the person reviewing them doesn't particularly like something, I might still like it due to the way that they've presented it, because it's been presented as like, these are things in the game, do you know what I mean, that happened in my experience of it. And some of those things might impact someone more positively or negatively than they affect other people, do you know what I mean? Like, so there might be some things in a game that people are criticising and going, oh, well, this is really bad and I didn't like this aspect of the game and therefore my review score is way lower than this person. But I might be looking at that and going, well, actually, I don't really care about that in this game very much. So if that's the reason why it's not getting higher review scores, then I'm fine with that. Do you know what I mean? It's not a problem. But as you said, you need to do the work. but also like trust yourself as well. Like the person that knows most about what you like in a video game is you. And if you see Dying Light, for example, a lot of people seem to have said, oh no, I like Dying Light, I like the previous Dying Light, I like running around a big open city with lots of verticality that also allows me to batter a zombie about the face with a baseball bat, as we were talking about earlier on. And I find a lot of fun and a lot of joy in that. And we're seeing that the review scores for that game basically didn't matter because so many people are just flocking towards it regardless. And I sort of admire those people. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you went, okay, well, the critics have reviewed it X, Y, or Z. That's fine. I still want to play this game. This is still my type of game. This is still what I want to play. I think a lot of what the critics were criticising was the story. The people who are playing this game didn't give a shit about that and continued to play it anyway. And that's fantastic. That's great. That's the way it sort of should be, you know?
Yeah, it's absolutely that, you know, ultimately there's things you're going to play and not enjoy as much as other people have, and things you're going to play and enjoy way more than it seems like everyone else has. You know, that just shows you straight away that the review system can't really be a barometer for anything other than a really kind of broad brush stroke. So yeah, trust yourself, trust your gut, give things a try. Again, given the world we live in now with Game Pass and PS Plus and all these things, all these different ways, all these sales that mean that you can access games more cheaply and more easily than maybe you could once upon a time. It just means, you know, you're in control of your reaction to a game. And really, the real fucking thing about review scores that bothers me is this slavish attachment to them that is all connected to this nonsense console war stuff. Like, see if Horizon had reviewed really badly. As a fan of the first Horizon game, a person should still be able to be like, well, this one's reviewed badly, maybe I won't give it a bash. Like, it's not an impingement on your personality or anything, you know? It's just...
Put it this way, if everyone was reviewing it as a 6.5, I would be like, oh well, hold on a minute,
there's something wrong. Right?
Do you know what I mean? Like,
but it's like people take it as like a personal attack on them if someone, or even if the broad critical kind of mass disagrees with what they want to feel, not even what they do feel, but what they want to feel about a game.
I love
stuff
this,
is a mess.
I know, I love this fanboy console wars thing that somehow everyone is under the thumb of the other sides. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, they're in the pocket of Sony or they're in the pocket of Microsoft, as if like they're just a person sitting in their house writing a review. It's like they're not, you know what I mean? They're beholden to their editor and that's about it. Like as if there's
exactly
this
that
grand conspiracy where every games journalist has been indoctrinated by one or the other. Do you know what I mean? And there's only a few bastions of light out there. Do you know?
Yeah,
it's absolute fucking drivel. It really is.
Like, 'cause people, you know, you were pointing out before as well. There, like Steve Ivor seems to have generally reviewed Xbox games a wee bit better than a lot of PlayStation games. But that,
but I mean that's also fine.
But
like if that is true,
of course it's fine. And it's also like what people seem to forget there is that Sony and Microsoft don't make the same games. So if a person or if even a group of people who work on a website are more interested in multiplayer shooters and driving games and co-op stuff like that than they are in narrative-rich single-player games, then they're definitely going to review Xbox games better than Sony games. Like, we understand that they aren't making the same stuff, so it's just...
Of course they fucking are. Yeah, it's
people need to get their head out of this nonsense. You know, it seems so driven by the online platforms that we use now, but my God, just enjoy your fucking game. Read a review of it, don't read a review of it. Just, you know, just be normal.
Like, be normal. What I would say is the takeaway here is, one, chill out, obviously, but like, be informed by the review score. Do you know what I mean? It's a useful tool, as I said. Like, it is useful to get the broad brush barometer of how the general critics feel about the game. Do you know what I mean? Which is informative, despite the fact of whether people want to acknowledge that or not. But it is informative and useful, and can be very useful about how people are going to spend their hard-earned money. You know what I mean? But don't let that be it. Don't let that be the end. Like, go and find gameplay videos or people playing the game, people who don't like the game, people who do like the game. See what they're saying. Do you know what I mean? Do the work. This is an expensive hobby, and you deserve to play games that you're going to fucking enjoy. Do you know what I mean? So put a little bit of work in. Don't be so driven by the review scores. And I know that's hard because the whole fucking industry's driven by the review scores, of course. But also, please, 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 more than anything, don't buy into this console wars bullshit. Holy fuck. See, to be honest with you, I know that Stevivor, right? I obviously have a very different taste in video games and what I like than what they do. Because to give Death Stranding a 3.5 out of 10 in my head is absolutely fucking ludicrous. But they're entitled to their opinion. It's fine. It's just a person's opinion. They disagree, but it's totally cool. We have very different tastes in video games. games, and I just think that there has to be more acknowledgement of that. Like, you don't have to like all the same stuff, and people that don't are no less invalid for not liking it. They just don't like the same thing that you do, and that's all it comes down to.
Yeah,
that's all it comes down to.
You'll learn something from reading the reviews of people who you don't necessarily agree with anyway, because they might say something that actually you think, I've never considered anything like that. So even just to write these things off because they don't appear to agree, it's just, all of this is a conversation. It is all that, and it's just nonsense to be cutting any of it off or deciding that some people are bad for having a different opinion. You know, it's all part of that mix, and the whole industry and any creative art is only going to get better if we talk about stuff instead of going, you said this is a 4, you're a fucking idiot, forget about you. You know what I mean? Because that 4 might contain the nugget that changes the industry, you know?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's always better to have more information than less. You know what I mean? I think
exactly.
that is the main thing. And again, just trust yourself. You know what you like in video game. Go out and find that. Don't be put off by someone who didn't like it. Maybe take criticism on board. Don't be against changing your mind, obviously, but you know what you like. Trust yourself. Don't trust the fucking score on Metacritic, you know? I think it's a useful tool, but it's a tool, and that's all that is, you know? Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I think we'll have to call it a day there. I'd like to remind everyone that you can find PlayersToo on all the social media. That is Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, the lot. You can also find our written content over at PlayersToo.com. That's PlayerStoo.com. And if you could take 5 seconds to give us 5 stars over on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, that really, really helps us out. There's a huge amount for the exposure of the show. And while you're over there, if you could leave us a little review as well, again, that just helps us out even more. And you can now review on Spotify, so be a double legend and review us on both. That would really, really help us out. Now I have to remind everyone that our play-along game for this month is Abzu, which I am very much looking forward to playing. It is now downloaded loose. Really short game. You can pick it up very cheap these days as well. Get involved, play along with us. I'm very much looking forward to this one. Very short experience, and by the makers of The Pathless, which by all accounts is a fantastic game, and no one knows that better than you, Lewis.
I certainly enjoyed it. I'm really looking forward to seeing what Abzu's got in store. It does seem to only be 2 hours long or something along those lines, so jump in with us and let's explore what's going on in the deeps of Abzu.
Absolutely, man, absolutely. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will see you next week.
Thanks.